It's time for a brainstorm. Alright guys, so we're back on the skid tonight. I have figured out how I want to fabricate the bottle rack. So I had a stick of 1¼ by 1¼ 1/8" wall square tube on the rack. So I went ahead and cut my parts. I figured out my dimensions. I was able to draft that on the burn table software and kind of figure out exactly how I wanted to build this, what size, and I think I got it all figured out. So I still need to 45 some of the ends on these, so I'm going to go ahead and use my Evolution saw to 45 those and get everything all prepped up. When we get to the point where all this stuff is prepped up and ready to go, beveled and everything, and we're ready to start tacking it up and fitting it up on here, I'll come back to you guys. Alright guys, so we're ready to start fitting these up. I got my fireball squares here and some clamps. I'm going to just start clamping this up and getting it tacked up. We're going to get the whole structure tacked up, fit into place, and I'm going to weld the structure to the skid with dual shield, but I'm going to weld the main structure up with short arc, I think. I've got all my joints beveled, everything's 45'd. I'm going to speed things up so you guys don't have to sit through the whole fitting process. It's kind of time consuming, so it'll make more sense once I start getting it fit up and set up here on the skid. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Alright guys, we got our structure all tacked up here. Turned out pretty good. Everything's nice and square and straight so far. So I think the next order of business is I want to get this all welded out. Like I said, I'm going to weld the base with dual shield. I want it to be good and solid. And then the rest of this stuff I'll just do with short arc. So I'll go ahead and get that welded out. While I'm getting this welded out, I'm going to go over and burn some parts. So the parts that I'm going to be burning are the back plate and the front plate where the bottles slide through. So that's the next step after this is welded out, is we got to get those tacked on, and then I got to start building the structure inside of this that holds the bottles. So while those parts are burning, I'm going to go ahead and weld this out. Let's burn some parts. Alright guys, so I got my front plate here. There's about 1/8 of an inch clearance on the bottle around this. I am going to have a little bracket with a bolt that you tighten down that'll hold the bottle in place. But this plate is going to get stitch welded on here. You can see I did leave clearance for the welds there. I didn't want to have to sit and grind this, so I just cut it out on the burn table with that. And I'll just have a few stitches on this. It's not going to have to hold any sort of serious weight or anything, so Now I'm going to go ahead and get my back plate tacked into place, and I'll show you guys. That's going to be a little bit different. I had a brainstorm in the middle of this process, so I cut that plate out a little bit different, and I'll show you guys what I'm thinking. So this is the backer plate. Now the reason I extended it all the way over is because I'm going to incorporate the acetylene bottle holder thingamajigger right here. So I'm going to burn a couple more brackets that have a circle in them, one on the top and then one on the bottom that sits about, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches up off the deck. And that way the bottle will drop in and it's not going to go anywhere. I don't even have to crank anything down or attach anything. So I'll go ahead and get this tacked up now. So now I think the next order of business is I'm going to start building the structure inside. I'm going to put a piece of channel that each bottle sits on, and then I'll actually have a bar. These ones I will put a little bracket on the end with a bolt that tightens down onto the bottle to keep it from sliding in and out. But that's basically going to be the structure. So I got to get my pieces of channel cut, and then I'll bring them over here and start tacking them up, and then we'll grab a bottle. I actually just ran one. It's the same on both sides. It's a little bit lighter now than it was, so we'll probably use that one to slide in and out and test fit it. So I'll get those parts cut and we'll come back to you. All right, I got my channel here. I'm going to go ahead and get this tacked into place. Now I want these 2 legs of the channel to be the rails that the bottle slides on. Then the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure my bottle's centered on that end. So I need to make sure the gap between the channel. So the other thing that's crazy is I had one piece of channel over there. Okay, so I'm going to grab a bottle, slide it in here and see how it fits. All right guys, so we've got our second piece of channel in here. You can see we got our bottle sitting up here. I have come up with a brainstorm on how I want to keep the back end of the bottle from moving around or falling off. It wouldn't go anywhere, but it could cause damage to the welder. It'll put this on a bind, so I want to be able to lock the back end of the bottle in somehow. So I've come up with an idea. I got some brackets drafted up on the burn table. I'm going to have to burn those and then break them on a 90, and then I'll show you guys how they're going to fit. All right guys, so after some trial and error, I think I got this figured out. I did burn these in 2 separate pieces on the first round. Didn't really like that. Plus I was like, why not just burn 2 halves? So what I did, it took me a while to pull all the measurements and figure this out and draft it just right. I did have to modify the other one just a little bit up under this corner, but I think it's going to work out. So all that I have to do now is I'm going to go ahead and break this. So I'm going to pull 5 inches off here and I'll break a 90 on this. We'll come back and I'll show you how it fits. I am going to have to grind the corners off of these where the welds are, but that's how that's going to fit. Ooh, I like it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bend the other side. I'll get that up here. We'll take a look at it, and then I'm going to start fitting this. I got to make sure that the bottles slide in and out and that they don't drag on this. I am going to have to lift this up just a hair, which is good because I've got clearance everywhere else. So I think it'll be okay. And then I'll go ahead and weld this, stitch weld this on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and bend that other piece and then we'll come back to you. All right, so we're gonna get this tacked up. Before anyone freaks out, these bottles are both empty and they're also inert gas. So we're not dealing with anything flammable here. I'm just trying to get this tacked into place. Nobody lose their head here. So I'm just looking to make sure I have clearance around these bottles all the way, which I do. This one's a little tighter than the bottom one. Now that that's tacked, I'm going to make sure these bottles slide in and out. Ooh, I like it. Oh yeah, that baby's just heavy. Okay. Once we get the bottles out, I can go to welding that up. I'm just going to stitch weld it up the frame there. Plenty of welding to do. I just wanted to get this fit up first. Now once I get this all fit up, the next order of business is to start working on the acetylene bottle rack. And I have an idea for that. Going to be the same kind of deal. Take a piece of plate with a hole burned in it, and I'm going to break it. Bottle will drop down in it. I'll go ahead and figure that out. Once I have a better plan, we'll come back. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to take a piece of plate that comes out here. I'm going to break it on a 90. It'll come down. And then I'll have a plate underneath here, kind of the same thing as this. And it'll just have the circle cut out. So the bottle will drop through the top plate and then through the bottom plate, and it's not going anywhere. So we'll go ahead and move on to that. Where I want to mount my torch hose reel, I'm going to burn the bolt holes into the plate that comes down, and I'll be able to mount my hose reel to that. I'll go ahead and burn that. We'll break it, and then we'll come back over here and get it set up and kind of fit up and show you guys what I'm thinking. Thing of beauty. Okay, so then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of plate down here in the bottom. Alright, so the other thing I want to do is burn another piece of plate with a circle, tack it in here so that it works the same way. So the bottle will drop down, it'll go through two circles, it's going to hold it top and bottom to keep it from moving, and then I may have another one of those bolt brackets to keep the bottle from jumping up and down if I hit a bump going down the road or something. So that's kind of the plan. You can see our bolt holes turned out good. Hose reel's going to mount right there. We'll get this tacked up, fit up, and then we'll give you guys a look once we get it all set up and where we want it to go. So now we want to drop a bottle in there and see how she fits. I do kind of like that it's open. I still need to get to these bolts, and I should have close to 1 3/4 clearance so I can get the bolts on. The bottle should never come in contact with those bolts. So I'm going to grab a bottle, drop that in, and we'll see how she fits. The other good thing about this system there's a little bit of room. I actually like that. But like I said, I'm going to put one of those little L brackets with the bolt on it so that I can tighten this down. That way it's not rattling the whole way down the road. Alright, so now that we know she fits, I'm going to go ahead and stitch weld this on. I'll put some stitch welds on this open corner. I'm going to put some stitch welds up here so that it's welded to the frame. Stitch welds down here on the bottom, and then a couple in here holding the bottom bracket in place. So we'll go ahead and weld that out now. Alright, so we're to the point now where we need to do a little cleanup. I'm going to go through with a wire wheel and my scraper, knock all the spatter off, hit all the welds, clean everything up, because we're getting to the point now where the majority of the major fabrication is done. So I do want to clean up all the spatter and everything. The more stuff I get on here, the harder it is to clean up. So I need to go through and clean some of this up. And then I did burn my little brackets that go on the bottle tops to lock them down with a bolt. So we'll have to get those welded on, but I'm going to go through and clean this up real quick. Once I go through and get this all cleaned up, we'll come back to you and I'll show you how I'm going to build these brackets that lock the bottles in place. All right, guys, let me give you an update on where we're at here. So I did put the welder back on the skid. You can see I got my lead reels set in place. So the next order of business is I want to figure out how I'm going to mount these reels. So let me show you what I've come up with. Okay, so I've got them clamped into place. You can see they're sitting a little crooked. That's because of how I got them clamped on there, but they're clamped into place. I want them sitting about right there. Now, there's going to be some complications here with these bolt holes because of this tube and this tube. So what I've come up with is I think it would be cool if I slid a tube inside this. So if I had a piece of tube, if this was the sleeve, and then I slid a piece of tube in there, and then it had a bracket that came up and bent backwards that this mounted to, and then it had a pin, and I could pull the pin, slide this out, which would give me, I don't know, 24 to 30 inches of clearance so I can get past the tailgate, because this reel setup, it will pivot. So if I'm welding something on that side or on this side, I can loosen that bolt, turn my reels, and not have to fight it or not have to drag it out this way and then go that way with it. I think that would be pretty handy. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I've slid a piece of tube in there, but it is a little bit tight. I think this piece on the side, after I stitch welded this, it might have warped just a little bit. I can get it in a little bit over 2 feet. I want it to slide in there about 36 inches. So here's my piece of tube. I've got it set up in the mill here. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna mill this face just a little bit, maybe, I don't know, 20 thou on all 4 sides so that it slides in and out of there nice and easy, so that I don't have to fight it. I don't want it to get galled up or stuck while I'm out there in the field. So I'm gonna go ahead and machine this down a little bit. So I wanna go ahead and get that done. When I get that all machined, I'll give you guys a look on how it slides in and out of there, and then we'll go to the bracket that we're gonna fabricate that it will actually mount to. So let's do it. All right, we're just getting this bolted up here. So we got the hose out. Now let's see if it'll go back in. So I'm pretty happy with that so far. I mean, we'll see how it holds up in the field. I think for a skid, that's gonna work out awesome. This is a hose tracked brand. I'd never heard of them. I figured I'd give them a try. So if I like it, I'll probably buy another one for the shop, but we'll see how it goes. I think we're ready to start working on our bracket here for our lead reels. I've just about got the machining done on this tube, so I've got about half a pass left to go. When I get that done, we'll come over here and we'll see if we can't get this knocked out. All right, guys, so here's where we're at. I did get the tube all machined. A couple rough spots in there. It's tough to machine something as long as that perfect, especially tube, because it's usually got a little bit of a belly in it or a crown. So we did the best we could. It's going to be good enough for what we need to do. It slides, I can slide it clear through if I want. There is just a little bit of play there. I got my bracket here with the 90 broke on it. Now I'm going to go ahead and set this here. All right, show you guys what I'm thinking. All right, guys, so I'm thinking I'll put them right here on the corners, and I want to sit them back like 1/4 of an inch so they don't get in the way when I'm sliding the bottles in. What I'm going to do is I'll just go ahead, put my level here on a 45. Okay. I just want it to look uniform. Then I'm going to take a nut and I'm going to weld a nut to the outside of this. That way it'll mount like this, and I'll be able to drive the bolt down and put pressure on the tank. So I'm going to grab a couple nuts. I'm going to weld these on first, and then I'll be able to just throw this up here, tack that on, and weld it out. All right, so we got those all tacked up. I'll weld those out. When I get that all done, I'll slide a bottle back in here. I'll give you guys a look. Okay. I don't need a whole lot of pressure on it. That's going to hold it. So let me show you up close what's going on here. Okay, so there's our bracket. See the bolt puts pressure on the bottle. So there's no way that can come out, especially where it's hitting the taper right there. And then when I'm ready to change it, just loosen that baby. And then slide the bottle out. I did get one put up there on the acetylene as well. All right, so I've been waiting to finish up part 2 of our skid build, and the reason for that is I've been waiting for some stuff to show up. I ordered a cord reel that I could mount on there. That showed up, so we're gonna unbox that today and take a look at it. I've also got a few other things. I've got a few things showing up. I wanted to wait so that I could get everything set up and show you guys kind of how it functions. That stuff's starting to show up, so as soon as I get all that stuff and we get it all put on the skid, we'll be able to show you how it works, and by that time you guys will be seeing the video. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at our cord reel. It is a little bit bigger than I thought it would be. I did buy this off Amazon. I believe it was $2.79. I looked at some Reelcraft and some Cox reels, which they're the upper echelon, and they were like 600 bucks, and I just didn't want to spend 600 bucks on a cord reel that I'm only going to use a couple times a year. So I figured this one's 80 feet long, and it comes with the cord. I've actually used the Goodyear hose reels. I had them at one of the places I worked, and they worked really well. So we're gonna try this. It is made in China, but we're gonna give it a try, see how it holds up. So the orientation of this is gonna have to be changed for me. I think if I switch this arm, all I gotta do is rotate this arm. And I just need to rotate it so that when I pull it, it's pulling straight out this way instead of up, because it's probably going to mount flat like this. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to get the skid up here on the table. We'll look at our options, but I'm pretty sure it's going to mount to the deck. The cord seems like it's good quality. It is heavy gauge. It's 12 gauge cord, and it does come with 3 outlets there on the end, so that's kind of nice. It does have a pigtail on it, so I'll just be able to run this right to my welder and probably leave it plugged in. There is a reset button right here on the side of it. Looks pretty good to me, and I like blue. You guys know I like blue, so I think the only thing left to do now is I've got to get the skid over here and kind of try to figure out where I want it to go. So we'll kind of work on that. We'll get the skid on the table and then start figuring out where we're going to mount it. All right, guys, so you can see I've pulled my torch reel off because I want to move it up 2.5 inches, because I want to put this right here in front of it, and that way they'll be offset. I do want to move that up. I don't want it protruding past this top surface because I've got plans for the top here. So I want the reel to be below this surface. 2.5 inches is as far as we can go. So I'm going to drill these holes. I'll remount the torch reel, and then we can mount our cord reel on the deck, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like. But I did want to show you guys what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to use the mag drill. I'm going to punch 4 more 7/16 holes, and we'll just scoot that up a little bit. All right, guys, let's take a look real quick. So I got the cord reel mounted to the skid. It's bolted down to the deck here. I did drill the holes on the acetylene bracket, and I actually moved it up 2.5 inches, which gives a good clearance between the two, so they're kind of offset. Still be able to pull this out, use it, without anything getting in the way, as well as this cord. So the cord rail is actually 80 feet long. I thought that was pretty cool. I think that's going to come in handy. We got that all set up. I'm still waiting for some stuff to show up in the mail. I don't know if it's on back order or what, but it hasn't showed up yet. But that's kind of where we are on the skid. So just wanted to give you guys an update. When I get the other parts and I'm able to get this all set up, we'll come back to you and give you a look. All right, guys, so we are getting close to wrapping up the skid. We've just got a few minor things to do. I am going to get the hoses put together. I'll get some bottles in here and then we'll go ahead and get some hoses made up that go from the bottle to the reel. As far as the leads go, I don't really like the way this is set up. It was a good effort, but I just don't like it. And I'll show you why. There's too much weight on the point that this was welded on. And if I pull this pin and then I pull this out, just a lot of flex. It's 1/4 inch plate, but it's only welded on this bottom little piece right here, so there's not a whole lot of structure to support this much weight. You get 2 reels with 100 feet of lead on each. That's quite a bit of weight. So I don't like this idea, so I'm going to cut this off, and then I'm going to burn a piece of 3/8 that is the full 6 inches wide. I'll weld it on the same way, but it's going to have way more rigidity, way more structural integrity, because there's going to be more surface area there to support it. And my backup plan, if that's not enough, I'll go ahead and burn 2 outside corner gussets and I'll weld that on the outside there, and that should stiffen it up pretty good. So we're going to fix this. I'm in the process of getting the leads hooked up. I did find a piece of lead with some connectors on it up on the shelf. That's why I keep all my little wire scraps and everything. You never know when it could come in handy. I've got one end hooked up. I'm actually going to cut this right in half, and that will be perfect for my positive and negative going to my reels. So I'll have to put some connectors on that, get that done. I got my little bump stop things adjusted here on both reels. The quick connects for the torch should show up today. And then, like I said, I am going to make up some hoses that run from the hose reel to the bottles. I'm going to start by getting our reels fixed. So I'm going to rig this up with the crane, cut this off. We'll swing this over and put it on the table. And then I've got to burn a piece of 3/8 plate, possibly a gusset. We'll go ahead and bend it. We'll get it in place, and then we'll test it out and see how it does. So here we go. All right, guys, got our piece of plate burned here. I'm gonna go ahead and clean it up. And we're gonna give the Fireball tool vise a test run here. Freaking love it. This is my favorite tool to knock the dross off when I cut holes or something, or knock the dross off the edges. It's a Fireball tool scraper. I'll actually leave a link for that in the description. Saves you a lot of time. Son of a gun. It's so nice not having to worry about spinning the part or hitting parts around it. Clean that part up, nice. Freaking loving that vise. All right, let's go bend it. Looks good. Hopefully you can see that. Freaking love this machine. Oh yeah. I do love having a crane. Alright, so she's only tacked on I'm gonna let the weight off of the crane. Okay, yeah, so there's a little bit of flex there, but it's not anything near like what it was. All right, so I can go ahead and weld that out. I feel good about it. I like where it is. I got clearance, but I do want to get a handle on here, and I think I am gonna put a gusset on there. Okay, I think I got it. I'm gonna do an outside gusset, and there will be a handle on that as well. It's time for a brainstorm. All right, guys, burned some gussets, a handle, but I just have to say, my goodness, I think I'm in love. This vise is awesome. There's just so many ways you can grip a piece of material. It's just awesome. So I'm loving it. I'm able to clamp it down. I'm able to use my scraper, knock all the dross off and the slag, hit it with the grinder, flip it over, same thing, and I'm done. It just makes everything so much easier and quicker. Time is money. All right, so we'll go ahead and get these cleaned up. When we're ready to tack these up, we'll come back and give you a look. Oh, check this out. You win some, you lose some. Package just showed up. Our quick connects for our torch just showed up. And I did order 3 spools of our 035 wire for our spool gun because I liked the way it ran. And I want to have some on hand. All right, she's all tacked up, and there is still some slop in the actual reel holder. You just kind of have to deal with that. So we're just going to deal with it. As far as the base is now solid. All right, so it's still kind of sucks pulling it out. It's not the smoothest. I do think I'll probably hit these surfaces with a grinder, with like a buffing disc, just to smooth them up as much as I can. And then I can see where it's dragging. And I may grease this. It might be kind of messy when you're getting in and out of the truck, but I do think it'll make quite a bit of difference sliding it in and out. It'll just make it a lot smoother. Going in is a lot smoother than coming out. We're probably gonna pull the bolts on this again. I'll pull the reels right off, and I'll pull this tube out, and I'll just set this on the table and weld the whole thing out. So we'll go ahead and do that now. When we get this all welded out, we'll come back to you and give you a look. All right, guys, so while this is cooling, let's go ahead and work on some of this other stuff. I did want to point out, I was at the welding store, so I picked up a 50-foot hose for my gas. If I'm running dual shield or if I'm TIG welding, I wanted to have a 50-footer so that I could TIG weld or run a suitcase or whatever. And then I had somebody give me this torch hose a while ago. I think it's decent. It's been out of the weather. It does kind of look like it's a little bit old, but I think it's going to be okay. So we're gonna go ahead and build some hoses that run from the reel to the bottles. I'm just going to take and figure out what length I need. We'll cut it, and then I'll show you guys how these repair kits work so that you can swage a new fitting on your hose. If you were to drop a piece of metal on it while you're out in the field, it's always a good idea to have one of these kits. So let's take a look at that. Let me get a length on this hose, and then we'll cut it and we'll start swaging our new fittings on. All right, guys, so my ADD got the best of me. I kind of got sidetracked. I came up with a brainstorm. I came up with an idea of something that I think is going to be a game changer for stuff like this, loading and unloading my bottles. So here's what I came up with. Okay, so I knew I was either going to have to load these by hand, which sucks. You guys saw it in part 1. I already have a touchy back, so I want to use the crane as much as I can. So I came up with this bracket. So hopefully you can see how that hooks on there. It grabs those two openings on the side of those bottle caps. Every bottle has those holes, and it doesn't come in contact with the handle on the inside. I made sure it had clearance, and it fits every single bottle I have. So the holes must be relatively consistent in size. So I think this is going to be a game changer. Obviously, you do want to be careful, but stuff like this, instead of having to use my back, boom. Love it. Sometimes you just got to make the tool you need. So one bottle's in. With the other bottles, I'll show you guys how I load those. So I take one of these chokers. I usually use the 24-inch, but I'm already using it. So I just go about halfway down. Okay. And then it will bite the bottle, and then when it bites the bottle, I just go ahead and lean it over. And then you can see I've got the bottle like this, and all I have to do is balance it. I think I'm going to store my oxygen in the top. Okay, once I get to here, I can just pull this back, slide my bottle in, and then I'm able to safely load and unload my bottles. So now that I have my bottles in place, we'll be able to cut our oxyacetylene hose and get it fit up to the reel. So let's do that now. All right, so I got a piece of hose here. This is as long as that acetylene hose needs to be. So we're getting ready to put our fitting on. So I just want to walk through this with you guys. Usually this is what the kit comes with. For those who don't know, if you see those little, you can see those little hash marks in the center of that nut. That means that it's reverse threaded. Throw that on the floor. This one here doesn't have those little notch marks on it. That one is just regular threaded. Okay, and then you'll have one of these fittings. So you'll take the barbed fitting here and you'll slide that in the hose. So I like to slide the ferrule on. And then you need to find the ferrule that's right for your size of hose. There's 3 different sizes in here, so I just found the size that works for me. Slide that ferrule on. So I'll take my barbed fitting, I'll slide it inside my reverse threaded fitting. You want to make sure you got the right fitting for the right color hose. And then you slobber on it a little bit and then push it in the hose. Now, some hose is easier than others. This is going in relatively easy. I'll take a fitting like this that I'm not going to damage the threads. I'll thread this in here. And then I can tap this with a hammer, and that's not going to hurt anything. It also gives you more to grab. So I'll just kind of sit and work this and see if I can get it to go with just some elbow grease. And it is going. The other thing I'll do sometimes is I'll put it on a hard surface and I'll push down on it. And that actually is working. Okay, so we've got it pushed in all the way. Now we got to crimp it. So, to be honest, the crimping tools that come with these are not great, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. So, let's see if this works. All right, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I may have modified this tool just a little bit. So I took a grinder and cut this so that it was square, so that I could use it in my iron worker and press this. You get such pretty swage marks when you have the actual swaging tool, which I don't have. I've just got one of these makeshift ones, but I'm hoping this will work out. I've never tried this, but I think it's gonna work out to where if I stick this in here and I press it with enough force, I think it's gonna work. So I'm just gonna use the tension on the pliers just to hold it enough. Yeah, just like that. So that'll hold it in place. That keeps my hands out of the way. So let's see if we can press this. Here we go. Oh, that was a little bit, got a little bit tight on that one. A little Western. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now we just need to do the bottom end. So I'm going to try to match those marks on the bottom end. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, it's not perfect. So it doesn't look the greatest, but it'll definitely work for what we've got to do. It's not coming off. It's swaged on there, so it doesn't look as pretty as that one, but it'll work. All right, guys, let's do a walkthrough on what we've got done. This may be about all you're gonna see on the skid until I have a project that I make a video. I am waiting for some more parts just to get the leads connected to the reels. That's not that big a deal. I'll show you what I got done there. But pretty much everything else is done. So let's do a walkthrough and I'll show you guys what we got. All right, so we got our handle done here. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. So the reels, because the weight is off center, it is really hard to pull this out. I do have to lift up on this side and then I'm able to pull it out. I did grease the tube and that helped. So I'll show you guys that. I do have the leads hooked up on the welder side. I just need to get some connectors on these sides and I'll hook those onto those terminals. So that's all that's left there. I will give you guys a look at how it is to pull this out. Okay, so I just pull my pin and then I'm able to lift up on this, pull it out. You can see it is quite a bit smoother with grease on it. It's probably gonna suck leaning over that and getting grease all over me. I'm sure it's gonna happen, but I don't know. I'm only gonna use this function if I need to weld something like straight to the side and get as much lead as I need. So it won't be used all the time, but when I need it, it'll be handy. Plus it gets the leads out past the tailgate, and then putting it in is fairly simple, straightforward. Okay, so there's that. In case I didn't show you how it turned out structurally. It's a lot better. There is still some slop in the reel, but that's about the best I can do. I'm pretty happy with it now. Okay, so I did run my hose through here, and I'm gonna get one of those plastic grommets for this so that it doesn't wear through that hose. I did drill holes on the bottom side of that channel, and I used zip ties to attach the hose there so it's up out of the way. And then it runs across back in there and it hooks on there, and there's one more zip tie. You can see it right there. So everything's tight, clean, out of the way. That hose is, I don't know, 16-inch hose. Pretty simple there. The reel seems to work well. I did get my gauges on, well, on the acetylene anyway. And then I attached my quick connects here, so I'm able to just pop these on. I'll keep the torch probably in a pack out box, and then I'm good to go. So, pretty slick. Extension cord, Also works well. We'll go ahead and start this and run it. Okay, like I said, I need to get a bigger oxygen bottle specifically for the skid, and I'll probably get another spare eventually. This is just to show you guys how it fits in here. This hose hooks up about right here for the oxygen, and then I'll be able to run argon or CO2 or whatever, depending on what I'm welding. We'll come around this side and I'll show you guys how it looks. I like the way everything turned out. I like that these are kind of offset, so they're both kind of out of the way. I like the way the bottle racks turned out. So that's about it for the skid. I think I might get some pack out boxes and screw some of those brackets to the top of this and mount 1 or 2 pack out boxes on there. And then I can throw the torch, anything that needs to stay with the skid, I'll probably put in there. That's probably the only other thing I'll do at this point. So that's probably about it for this one. That was a pretty fun project. I enjoyed building it and putting it together. I think it's going to be awesome for doing mobile work. It's going to be a lot easier and a lot more convenient. So I'm pretty excited. So stay tuned for the next mobile video. You'll probably see the skid on there. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching as always. See you on the next one. It'll start making sense once I get it all set up and fit up here. All right, so we're to the point now where we need, once we get it cleaned up, we'll come back to you and I'll show you how I plan on doing these little bottle locker tab thingies. Goodness. By that time, goodness. I don't know if it's 100 foot of lead. I think it's 100 foot of lead on each. You get 2 reels with 100